Hi there and welcome to Ask the Experts. I'm Reya El-Salahi and joining you for a very special heatwave episode throughout this afternoon. For the next half hour or so, we're giving you the chance to ask questions about staying safe in the beautiful sunshine, whether you're loving it or loathing it. Lots of top tips and expert advice on the way, courtesy of Dr Sweta Rai from the British Association of Dermatologists. Welcome, lovely to have you with us.
Thank you, Ray.
Bringing some sunshine into the studio this afternoon, and do stay with us over the next half hour or so. We're joining you live on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Wherever you're watching us, get involved by posting a comment below. Now, as temperatures continue to soar across the UK, the Public Health England advice is quite simple. Stay out of the sun between 11 AM and 3 PM, apply sunscreen and wear a hat if you have to go out in the heat. Now, that's all pretty obvious, isn't it? But how much do you really know about staying sun smart? Dr Rai, how do sun creams work?
So that's a very interesting question, Reya. Sunscreens work by providing you the ability to spend a longer time period in the sun. So an SPF 30, for example, which is a sun protection factor of 30, allows you to stay 30 times longer in the sun without burning for your particular skin type for a given duration. And they work by filtering the harmful UV light, such as the UVA, the UVB rays. So we recommend that you use a sun protection factor of 30 or above, and you reapply every 2 hours whilst during the sunshine.
How realistic is that to do? For those of us that have busy working days, working lives, you know, reapplying sun cream every 2 hours, it's not that realistic, is it?
No, you're right. It's not the first thing that you think of. But what we do say that even you should try to keep a bottle in your bag during a period like this, and whenever you're about to go outside, you reapply it half an hour before you're about to leave your office, half an hour before you're about to go out in the morning, and if you're staying outside, you carry it in your bag and you try to reapply it every 2 hours. Setting a timer on your phone, for example, will help you remember, and also asking friends who are around you to tell you if you're going pink or if you're going tanned, then that will help as well, so that you don't burn yourself.
With the current warm weather, you'd be doing that every 5 minutes, telling every single friend around you, you look as though you're going a bit too pink or perhaps tanning a bit too much. Talking of which, is there such a thing as a safe tan?
No, there isn't. A safe tan is a misnomer. If you are getting a tan, it means you have spent longer than you should do in the sun. And the reason we say that is because we see skin cancers as a result of chronic low-grade sun exposure, which is a so-called safe tan, over a period of years, which is called the non-melanoma type of skin cancer. And we also see skin cancers as a result of blistering sunburn, which most people are aware of, which is a more melanoma type skin cancer.
When you talk about this sort of thing, it's quite easy to, be light and airy and talk about, friends getting a little bit pink or a little bit burnt and, having a bit of fun and games and a laugh around it. But in the work you do as a skin cancer specialist, you must see your fair share of people that have just not taken the care they should have done. How common are you, how often are you seeing people coming to you with skin cancers linked to sun exposure?
So again, very common indeed. I do skin cancer clinics twice a week, and I pick up at least 10 to 15 a week, and I operate on skin cancers as well, and chronic low-grade sun exposure leads to the most common type of skin cancer, which is non-melanoma skin cancer, basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and these are undoubtedly related to your sun exposure. And often when people think that, oh well, I didn't actually burn in the sun, but it's the mild pink that you go, or the slight brown that you go, which is actually causing sun damage.
Do you find that the people coming to you in these conditions facing the sort of things you've just mentioned, do they have common comments? They wish they'd behaved a little bit more appropriately. They wish they hadn't been out in the sun in the hottest part of the day, that sort of thing. Do you hear that regularly?
You do, and especially when they're faced with surgery, which is often the optimal treatment for skin cancer, and obviously surgeries, particularly on your head and neck, which is the most exposed of your body, can be quite disfiguring, and it can be quite a psychological adjustment for people to get used to parts of their face being chopped away and reconstructed. So when you do see the end of the spectrum, which is what we often do in clinics and theatres, you realise that the nice day in the park should have been maybe accompanied with a bottle of sunscreen and the reapplication.
Coming up, we're going to be doing a live demonstration of how you should apply sun cream, which might seem like a pretty obvious task, but it's not quite as simple as it might sound. We will go into more detail around this a little bit later, as I say, but just the top lines, top tips. How should you apply sun cream?
Okay, so you should apply sunscreen up to half an hour, if not 15 minutes before you go out into the sun. You should apply it liberally, let it sink into your skin, and we'll be demonstrating that later. And you should carry it in your bag and reapply it within 2 hours. The moment you notice that you are getting pink or even slightly brown, you reapply it again. There's no such thing as too much sunscreen. The sunscreen and the level of protection that it says on the bottle, such as SPF 30, you're actually not really getting an SPF 30 by the time you put it onto your skin, because for most of us it's not cosmetically acceptable to put on the amount of sunscreen that they did in research trials, which is 2 grams per centimetre square onto your skin.
That's a lot of product.
Absolutely, yeah. So 2 grams per centimetre square is over a very small area, and we couldn't walk out in on the streets covered with sunscreen. So you're actually only getting from an SPF 30 bottle, possibly SPF 10 to 12 if you're applying it liberally and correctly. And you can that's no bad thing, because you're still 10 to 12 times less likely to burn in the sun for a given time period. However, reapplication becomes more important. Also layering your sunscreen with appropriate clothing, which is where the hats come in, which is judged by a separate ultraviolet protection factor, which we say should be above 40, and you can now get ultraviolet protective clothing online, and really good quality fashionable clothing online, which you can add to your sunscreen usage.
I'd imagine that you practice what you preach, but what SPF factor do you wear?
I wear SPF 30, and I try my best, even with a busy schedule, to reapply during the day. But I agree with you, it's not the easiest. And we were talking about women and wearing makeup earlier, and how do you reapply. And I often say to my female patients that you can get SPF 30 or SPF 50 tinted sunscreens now, so it acts as a sun protecting cream as well as a foundation, so when you reapply it you don't have to put your makeup on top of it.
So a good idea to look into that too. Coming up, we'll be bringing you some more top tips and expert advice as well. You heard a live demonstration of how to apply sun cream. Do get in touch with your thoughts, whether you're joining us on Facebook, Twitter or YouTube this afternoon. Get your questions to our skincare expert, Dr Sweta Rai, on the programme this afternoon by commenting below. It really is as simple as that, and we'll share them with her a little later in the programme. Tell us about the difference between some of the skin cancers, and you touched on this, but the different types of skin cancer. I think the most common, melanoma.
Yeah, so the most common is actually non-melanoma skin cancer, but melanoma is the more dangerous type of skin cancer because it can spread to other areas, and therefore be life-limiting in some cases. So melanoma type skin cancer, according to Cancer Research UK statistics, is prevalent between 15,000 to 16,000 patients a year, and those are just the reported cases. We don't know about the unreported cases, and we are getting better at picking up melanomas now, because patients, due to programs like this, are aware of what to look out for on their skin, and melanoma is mostly due to sun exposure, but there is a genetic component to melanoma as well. So although it's not the most common type of skin cancer, it is probably the most dangerous type of skin cancer.
Who needs to be the most aware? Who needs to take the most care when it comes to worrying about skin cancer and being out in the sun?
So the people who need to be more aware of melanoma type skin cancers are people with a family history of melanoma. In some cases we also say for people with a family history of pancreatic cancer, they found a genetic link. And also if you have more than 100 moles on your body, you are at a higher risk. If you are type 1, which is a Fitzpatrick type 1 skin, you are red-haired, Celtic skin type, you are at a higher risk of sunburn due to your skin type, and therefore at a higher risk of melanoma type skin cancer.
So those of us that have red in their hair from the bottle and perhaps slightly darker skin, Black and Asian people in the UK, something they don't need to worry about quite as much?
So I wish I could say yes to that, but there is a type of melanoma which is called acral melanoma or subungual melanoma, which basically means you can get melanomas on your hands and feet, which is not necessarily related to sun exposure, but more of a genetic predisposition or a familial predisposition, and you have you can get acral melanomas in darker skin types, but that is not usually related to sun exposure. But you can get non-melanoma type skin cancer in darker skinned individuals, which is due to sun exposure. So you should be protecting your skin no matter if you're our skin type or if you're very fair skinned.
Okay, thanks to S. Baggins for getting in touch. Thanks for watching and for commenting. Keep your comments coming in below. They ask, what's the best factor for red-headed fair skinned people, and is spray or cream better?
Okay, it's a really good question. So there's been a study done recently by King's College London who have reported that a higher SPF should be used. At the British Association of Dermatologists, we recommend that you use SPF 30 or above, and it's your choice. An SPF 50 will give you around a 98% protection, whereas an SPF 30 will probably give you around a 94-95% protection. So there's not much in it, but the reapplication, the amount of time you actually spend in the sun without getting burnt, and wearing the appropriate clothing on top of your sunscreen is actually going to help you.
Talking of appropriate clothing, someone from, I think, Epping Forest has been in touch to say, what type of sun hat works best? I think that's, you know, the baseball cap or the big wide-brimmed sun cap.
That's a really good question again. So we say that you should have a hat which has a wide brim, so it should be 2 centimetres or above, but the weave of the sun hat is really important. So I often see patients wearing baseball caps, and a baseball cap is only giving you a coverage in front. It's not really covering your ears or the back of your neck, which is the reason why we recommend wide-brimmed hats. And it should be a hat like a Panama hat, for example, where you put it towards the sunlight and you're not actually allowing light through. So again, you can have sun hats which contain an ultraviolet protection factor of 40 or 50, and if you wear that, then you're less likely to have sunburn.
So if you hold your cap or your hat up to the sun and you can see through it, it's probably not the right one.
No, and the straw hats with lots of holes in them are definitely not the right one.
As nice as they look.
Exactly, and even though they have a wide brim.
Now, besides using sun cream, and we've talked in depth about that, and we'll be giving you a live demonstration of how to correctly apply it in just a moment's time, what other measures should we take to stay safe in the sun? Trying to limit our exposure to being in the sun in peak sun hours, for example, 11 o'clock till 3 o'clock, limiting long periods of being in the sun, so giving yourself a break before you actually go out into the sun, and clothing and sunscreen and reapplication. I can't stress it enough. The reapplication is really the factor that's going to keep you from becoming sun tanned and sunburnt, particularly on areas that you can't cover up. And let's face it, none of us can go out on a sunny day or a warm day like today with fully clothed coat on. It's just not practical. No chance of that happening at all if you walk around, particularly in London where we join you from this afternoon. Everyone's out in their summer clothes, which is nice to see, but I hope you're taking some of these top tips on board. Talking of which, we're going to be giving you a live demonstration in just a moment's time with top tips and advice, expert advice on how to apply sun cream, how you should be applying it. But first, do you know how to do that correctly? More on that to come. Before all of that, our top tips for staying safe in the sun.
When it comes to SPF face cream or foundation, you'd need to apply a whole teaspoon of it to your face for it to offer the SPF it claims. You'd also need to reapply it every 2 hours.
So I'm actually wearing the correct amount of SPF foundation that's needed to protect my skin. Let's face it, it's not a good look. I think most people are unlikely to wear the correct amount that's needed to protect them from the sun. In the case of a 30 millilitre bottle of foundation, for example, this would only last you for 6 applications.
Okay, welcome back. We are now joined by our volunteer model, Harry, who's come and joined us on set. Harry, thanks for coming in to demonstrate how best to apply sun cream. So here we have a tablespoon of sun cream. Talk us through the amount first that you should be using.
Sure. So it's difficult to remember really in teaspoons and tablespoons. So I often say that you use a shot glass full, and most of us know shot glasses from other walks of life. But if you use a shot glass full of sunscreen and apply it on all your exposed areas, you should be about getting it right for your exposed areas only. In the summer, we do recommend that you use sunscreen just as a moisturizer, and you apply it on non-sun exposed sites as well, because your clothing may be allowing the light through. But this is how most of us can wear sunscreen on a day-to-day basis without looking too abnormal in the sunshine.
That's a lot of product for such a small part of your body, and I would ordinarily just give it one pump of the sun cream, and that would do my entire arm. By the looks of it, this is far more than most people would use.
And exactly, and the sunscreen studies have been done on far more than this as well. You would allow this to sink into your skin and maybe cover up your arms as well. So you can't really go out with your hands wet like this, which is why I was talking about the point of cosmetically acceptable level of sunscreen is using it as a moisturizer, allowing it to go into your skin and it being slightly shiny rather than being lots of it. So this is the amount you have to apply to keep yourself really well protected.
And if Harry were to apply this amount before leaving the house in the morning, does he have, I'd imagine, wait a fair amount of time for that to soak in? Because if you put your sleeve down, that's going to mess up your shirt.
Absolutely. This is particularly runny type of sunscreen, but you should be using a cream-based sunscreen, because a spray-based, you don't really know if it's covering all areas. And yes, I wouldn't recommend that Harry wait an hour maybe for this to dry up, that you just rub it into your skin and then you go out with clothing on top.
And how about if you moisturise as well? Would you moisturise before, moisturise afterwards? How would it work?
So we recommend that you use sunscreen as a moisturiser. So rather than using a sunscreen and then a moisturiser on top, use it as a moisturiser, and then your skin doesn't become too greasy. A lot of my patients complain that they don't want to use sunscreen because of, complain probably is not the right word, but say that you have lots, it's too greasy and it can break them out in spots, which is quite true because it does clog up your skin. So use a sunscreen with a consistency that's right for your particular skin type. So if you've got oily skin, for example, use a lotion-based sunscreen. If you've got dry skin, for example, use a cream or a thicker cream-based sunscreen, and that way you know that you're going to be able to apply it effectively onto all areas.
So Harry now is safe to go. However, before we say goodbye to him, just give us an idea of how much of that product should be. I mean, we're just seeing Harry's arm here for obvious reasons, but if you were to use that product all over, a similar amount everywhere, or on places like your face and neck more?
So on places which are sun exposed, obviously a good thin covering of it. You don't need to go out looking wet like it is looking here, so you rub it into your skin and limit the amount of time that you're going to spend there, thinking that yes, I have applied SPF 30, but I may not be getting SPF 30 protection because of the amount that I can cosmetically apply to go out to work or to go out to pick up your kids or whatever else you're going to do. So be mindful of the fact that it's a thin layer of sunscreen. You've got good coverage. You've covered your ears, the back of your necks, the places that we often forget, where we don't always moisturize, and make sure you're well covered and you've got a hat on.
So even after applying all of that sun cream, Harry should pull down his sleeves and keep that out of direct sunlight?
Or limit his exposure to direct sunlight if he is fair-skinned as Harry, of course. And then it comes back down to your skin type. If you are darker skinned, because you have got melanin which protects you against the sun, you can spend longer in the sun because of that melanin protection, and the same amount of sunscreen will last you longer.
Okay, moving on, we're going to be talking about SPF in cosmetics. And many moisturisers and foundations claim to help protect your skin in the sun, but can cosmetics really replace sun cream? Well, Which presenter Grace Farrell has put an SPF foundation to the test. So as you've just seen, not only with the sun cream do you have to add a lot of product, but also with those SPF foundations and cosmetics, you're adding a lot of product to your skin. With some of those SPF foundations, Dr. Rai, is that enough? If you put on a foundation that says it's SPF 15, for example, do you need to put anything else on top of it?
So I usually say that you use a tinted sunscreen instead of a foundation, just because of the coverage that you are getting with the SPF 30 or 50, which is tinted, and there are various cosmetic companies which do produce tinted sunscreens. The problem that you have with makeup is that obviously individual companies, and I can't comment for those companies, they are saying that they have an SPF 15, but usually you wouldn't reapply that makeup during the day, and that's where it becomes possibly a little bit more on shaky ground. That are you actually getting? You're probably not getting the full SPF 15 anyway, and you are then not reapplying it during the day. So it's always better to use a sunscreen.
Is there a sense that some of these products are using SPF, but actually we're perhaps as consumers not taking on board that that's not enough, that you think you've put on the foundation, the SPF, and many of us have done it. That's me done, I don't need to put anything else on my face, but actually that's not the case.
No, absolutely, and you go to shops and you can see you've got blusher with cosmetic in it, but with an SPF in it, but how much blusher would you put on? You've got eye creams with SPF in it, you've got lip salves. Now lips are a really important area, and I would use sun protection factor containing lipsticks. We do often see cancers around the lip due to it being protruding from the face, our lips being protruding from the face, and you get sun damage around the lips. But yes, because makeups are for a particular area and they're not just all foundations, it may be that you're not getting enough of the factor on it when you're applying it.
Okay, I want to take as many of your questions as possible. Thanks for watching and for getting your comments and questions in. Do keep them coming in by commenting below this video. I'm joined for this Facebook Live all about staying safe in the heat wave at Facebook Live, YouTube Live and Twitter Live by Dr Sweta Rai from the British Association of Dermatologists. Now questions in from Lois, who says, I'm going away. What's the best waterproof sunscreen to wear? I have eczema.
Okay, great question. I don't talk about brands, obviously, but any waterproof sunscreen or waterproof that it says on the bottle is not completely waterproof, first of all. So waterproof sunscreens will last you for approximately 40 minutes in the water. So it is important that you apply it half an hour before you go into the water, and then limit your exposure to the sun whilst you're in the pool, for example, or you've gone swimming, for 40 minutes, and then towel yourself dry and then reapply it. So that's your best advice for sunscreen. If you've got eczema, then you should be careful in a chlorinated or chlorinated pool, or even in seawater, and you should make sure that you moisturize really well before and after you go into the pool, because the water can dry your skin out.
How about the once a day sun creams? Are they fine to wear if you're going away on holiday and you don't want to have to keep finding somewhere to reapply? Are they good to use?
There is no such thing as a once a day sunscreen. So if they are, if the sunscreen by its very nature, as we've been talking, when you apply it, you're not actually getting the full protection because of the amount that's required to apply on your skin. So for it to be lasting the whole day is not accurate.
Okay. Epping Forest back in touch saying, I wear glasses with clear lenses. Is it worth paying extra for UV filter coating?
Absolutely, yes. So eyes is not something that we have discussed about, but yes, we do see a lot of skin cancers around the eyes as well, and we recommend that you do get protective UVA and UVB filtered glasses. Yeah.
We're almost running out of time. I just want to rattle through as many of your questions as possible. Thank you for joining us. In the UK, do you only need to wear sun cream when it's hot and sunny, Catherine says?
That's a really good question again. So you can get sun exposed, which is the chronic low-grade sun exposure, more than the blistering sunburn, through generally being out even on a cloudy day. So it can be a warm day, cloudy day, and you'll still get UV light, which can harm your skin. And a great example of this is during the winter months when people go skiing, because the snow reflects the UV light. It is really important for you to be wearing sunscreen, even though it's really cold outside and it might not be a sunny day.
Chrissy asks, is older skin less likely to burn?
So again, an interesting question. So older skin is more weathered skin because of the exposure that you have had over the years, and we do know that the weathering of the skin makes your skin rather thicker, and therefore you probably are going to burn less with time, but the idea is not to get it weathered probably in the first place.
Right.
But yes.
James says, what are the signs of skin cancer?
Great. So the signs of skin cancer depends on which type of skin cancer, obviously. The more dangerous form of skin cancer is a melanoma, and a melanoma could be a mole or a freckle, or sometimes even a non-pigmented lesion which is growing, which is changing shape or colour, changing its outline, or is displaying symptoms of bleeding or itching. Often we say that you follow the ABCD technique of monitoring your moles, which is basically you look for a mole and you look for asymmetry in the mole, you look for border irregularity, you look for colour change, particularly different tones of colour developing in the mole, and you look for growth of the mole. So if it's growing, changing, and you think this is not quite right, that's something to bring to the attention of your doctor or dermatologist.
Angia says that I've been diagnosed with, and I apologise in advance if I pronounce this wrong, and I'm sure you'll pronounce it right, chronic actinic dermatitis, and get sun scents on prescription. I have really struggled in the hot weather. What else would you advise?
So chronic actinic dermatitis you pronounce very well, actually, and chronic actinic dermatitis is more of an allergic condition, and you should be seeing a specialist dermatologist to find out the reason for your chronic actinic dermatitis. Often it can be associated with other forms of contact allergy, and you require proper treatment depending on the severity of your chronic actinic dermatitis, not only in the form of sunscreen, but also in the form of suppressing the inflammation that's caused from the sun on your skin.
Kay says, how can I keep my baby's skin safe in the sun?
Really good question. So babies, we were talking about older people being weathered. So babies have no weathering on their skin because of their youth, and it is important that you use a higher protection sun cream, and on the market you have kid sunscreens available, as well as if your baby's skin is sensitive, then the hypoallergenic forms. You apply you reapply and make sure that they're kept in the shade. So really, rather than depending on sunscreens alone, it should be more about physical methods of protecting your children in the sun.
And on the other end of the age spectrum, if you have elderly relatives or neighbours who perhaps have dementia that you see out and about in the weather at the moment, in the hot weather at the moment, is there a sense that for people that perhaps are slightly impaired when it comes to realising that they need to get out of the sun, that you should be keeping a close eye on them?
Absolutely, and it's just a generally nice thing to do for people, and also it will protect them from being sunburnt. And also, I also say that we do find more types of skin cancer, or more skin cancer in the elderly, non-melanoma skin cancers which go undetected, and melanomas. So if you are looking after an elderly relative, just check their skin out maybe and see if they have any moles that you didn't think they had before, or any lesions which you think, oh, this is new, and get it looked at by the doctor.
So keep a close eye on all your friends and relatives. We are almost out of time. It's been fascinating to hear from you. Just a final word on advice, top tips for staying safe in the sun as we see potentially another 30-degree plus weather heat wave on the way this weekend.
So I would say keep your sunscreen bottle, whichever you choose, whichever brand you choose, at hand. It should be SPF 30 or above. It should have a UVA and UVB protection. It should have a 5-star rating, means that it has good UVA protection. And make sure you have a good hat, lots of water. And we don't say don't go out in the sun, but just stay safe in the sun.
And lots of advice on the British Association of Dermatologists, social networks and websites too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dr Rai, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Some expert advice for you this afternoon here on Ask the Experts. Thank you very much indeed for watching and for taking part. If you'd like any further expert advice, or perhaps to see our lab tests of sun cream, just visit which.co.uk/suncreen. Thanks for watching.